Hello, everybody. This is Mark Vines, and welcome to the Mark Vines Show. And I know it's been a little while since I've done a broadcast, but life has been pretty busy, as you can imagine. But don't worry, we're here. We're going to give you analysis. We're going to give you our thoughts, our opinions, and tell you everything that you need to know going into this election. And we're pretty close to a month out, which is kind of amazing. And today we have a guest that we've had with us a number of times. He's becoming kind of a regular on this show, and that's Clint Morano. How are you doing, Clint?
Good, Mark. How are you?
I am doing well. However, it's an interesting day because, as you know, Clint, last night was the presidential professional wrestling match. I won't even call it a debate. I'm not even going to call what happened last night is a debate. And I will tell you, it was a knockdown, drag out, slugfest. And if those of you in the audience, if you are a fan of professional wrestling or the UFC or boxing or really mix them all together, if that's your thing, I think you would have really enjoyed that last night. And I got to be honest with you, Clint. Can I be honest with you?
Yes,
Can I be
absolutely.
honest with you? My wife hated it. She actually had to turn and walk away. But I, in a way, kind of enjoyed it, to be honest with you, because being here in Washington, D.C., and Clint, you're here in the Washington, D.C. area, you're around these politicians and even the leaders of all the different military organizations and federal organizations that we have here. And oftentimes it's just fake and polished, and people don't speak unless it's been written for them. And it's just this, very sterile kind of demeanor that people have, and we've seen these debates over the years where it's staged questions, it's staged answers, and they're prepped, and there's even been allegations of people having earphones in their ears and answers being fed to them. That was not last night. Last night was gritty. It was emotional. If you did not know that these two men hate each other, it was on full display last night, Clint, let me tell you. And I had my daughter call me up last night because they have this thing in school where, and for those of you who don't know, my daughter's in college. In the morning, they were going to have a project, and one of the assignments that she had in school was that first thing in the morning, they were going to have to talk about one good thing and one bad thing from the debate. And then their overall impressions. And of course, like most kids today, she had to call me and get my opinion because she would adopt my opinion to be her opinion. And I warned her about that because my opinion will probably get her expelled from the school that she's in. But anyway, it was amazing. Now, Clint, before I hand it over to you, here's my key takeaway on this. I do not believe that last night changed anybody's minds. I think at this point, particularly since there's been essentially no campaigning going on this year, and it's shocking to me to think that we are 30 days out from an election, presidential election, because it doesn't feel like there's been any campaigning. Well, there hasn't been any campaigning going on at all. And I think at this point, you've made up your mind. And if you haven't made up your mind by this point who you're going to vote for, there's something wrong with you. Actually, I don't know if you've been living under a rock or you just don't pay attention, or if you are that uncentered in your own beliefs. I don't know that I want you voting at this point if you haven't made up your mind. Now, if you are a supporter of Trump, I think, and a lot of Trump's supporters want red meat. They wanted the bashing. They wanted the punching. You got it. If you are a Biden fan, and your only goal was to make sure that he could stand upright and not drool on himself after 90 minutes, you got that, because he did. I'll give it to Biden. He did stand there for 90 minutes and he took it. Okay. But that was a very low bar. And I will also say, if you go back for the viewer or to the listeners that haven't seen didn't see the debate, go back and look at it because you can see it on YouTube. He was starting to lose it towards the end. He was starting to lose focus. He was starting to lose his footing a bit, and he did not look well. But I will say that no matter, both sides of the fence, wherever you are on both sides of the fence, you got what you wanted. So with that, Clint, what any basic thoughts? What do you think?
So, yeah, I mean, Trump, you knew Trump was going to come out and make it personal. I mean, that's his MO from the get-go. That's, you push him, he pushes back twice as hard. He usually says things, that go beyond the normal bounds of what, someone presidential will do. But hey, that's what 8 years of Bush getting bashed by the press and not pushing back, and then another 8 years of Obama treating Republicans like second-class citizens and conservatives, that Trump is a manifestation of 16 years of that type of behavior, and people are tired of it. And he came out, and that's what he does.
And you didn't mention the 3.5 years of what he's gone through.
Yeah. And then, then on top of that, I mean, from the day he got elected to even now, they're still threatening to impeach him and all this other nonsense. So I would have expected nothing less from him. What I was impressed by is that he, unlike other debates in the past where he was kind of, he showed that he is now used to being the commander in chief, I think, in some respects in his performance. I think he was more professional in that way than he was in his debates with Hillary Clinton. Now, Biden, on the other hand, I mean, Biden is he's trying to prove he's as tough as Trump, right? From saying that he can do so many push-ups to threatening to beat him up to, but he's an old senile man. And it's really sad that this is what the Democratic Party put up for Trump.
They almost came close to that last night.
No, I mean, and you know what? My money's on Trump. He's bigger and he can throw his weight around probably better. Biden will probably, his bones will break because they're so old and brittle. But, so, I mean, and the thing about Biden, I mean, I just don't know how it amazes me politicians can get up and say things and say them with such conviction that they believe it's true. Here's a guy who's spent almost 50 years in DC. He's been on the wrong side of almost every major decision he's ever made. All right. But yet he still comes out there and says he's the best choice for making the world right. And I'm like, based on what? Your track history is completely and utterly flawed. And as you get older, you become more buffoonish. And I want to trust you with the future of this country in a time like this. At least Trump, in his short period of time, in his 3 years since he's been in the White House, he's got a lot done. It doesn't get promoted as much. It doesn't, and he doesn't, sometimes he gets in his own way of promoting his successes. But when you look at his foreign policy, his domestic and economic policy, and no matter how everyone is trying to derail him, things are still moving right. I mean, the market is up again today.
Yeah.
Even as we struggle to fight our way out of a COVID disaster, the economy is still responding in a positive way. It's amazing. So you're right.
We are definitely on our way back. I mean, you can just look around. I don't even need to look at the markets. I can see it.
Yeah, you could see it. And, people are out and about and they're buying and they're going to dinner and they're doing things that, they're just tired of this COVID stuff and they want to live and I think that's probably what we should have done from the get-go. But anyways,
yeah, I
think to go back to what you said though about what did you say about Biden and his behavior? It's almost comical that it's come down to this. But and to circle back about saying that people have already made up their minds. I would say probably 99% of the people, nothing that happens between now and 33 days from now is going to change their vote. There's a small percentage of people that may be waffling, but I don't think I think the numbers are what the numbers are. And I don't trust the polls that keep saying that Trump
Not
is
at all.
behind. Because like last time, there are a lot of people who are gonna go vote for Trump, but they're not going to advertise it. So we'll see what happens. I would.
And you know why I agree? I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. When you say that there's people who are going to vote for Trump, but they won't just say it. I mean, when you go around here, and you and I live in Northern Virginia, I own a Trump hat. I know that probably shocks you, Clint, but I do. I own a Trump hat, and I want you to picture it this way. And I know that we have people that are overseas in Europe listening to this podcast, and I want to tell you what the climate is like. We live in Northern Virginia, which is a deep blue state, and so if you're overseas, what that means is it's a heavily Democrat state. Red would be Republican, so this is a deep state.
Well, heavily Democrat because of 3 counties.
Yeah, because the 3 counties,
4.
right. The vast majority, if you get outside of Northern Virginia, Virginia is actually a pretty conservative state. The problem is that the population density is up here. So when you go around, my family will not allow me to put a Trump sign up, put a Trump sticker on my car, wear my Trump shirt. But sometimes I will sneak out, in the dark of night when my family's not looking, and I'll put my Trump hat on and my Trump shirt on. And do you know, Clint, I know this doesn't surprise you, but maybe many in our audience, I go around and I actually have people come up to me almost like it's a secret. Like they'll walk up and whisper to me and they'll go, "I love your hat. I love your shirt. I wish I had the confidence that you have." And I've talked about this in previous podcasts, that I think that it's like what Reagan used to say. It's this silent majority. We are out there. And I will go around, like I run in my neighborhood. I'll go for a jog, and I'm starting to see lots of signs up, like I'm a veteran and I vote blue, or Biden, Harris signs up. And you think, well, okay, well, everybody here must really hate Trump because I don't see any Trump signs up. No, the difference is we don't put signs up because the Democrats are notorious for being children. They're notorious for being petty, and they will damage your car. They'll damage your house. They might even assault you, and nobody wants to deal with that. And it's just the mentality that they have. Now, I'm going to say this, Clint, and anybody out there in this audience that does not believe me, I want you to go back and analyze the videotape from that debate last night, and you tell me where I'm wrong in this. And I'm going to caveat what I'm about to say, Clint, with the fact that I really wish, if I was advising President Trump, and President Trump, if you're listening to this broadcast, if you want my advice, call me and we'll have a chat about it. I wouldn't have handled some of the questions the way that he did. I wouldn't have. Okay, I'll grant you that. But he is what he is. And the press reports today were all about how he was a bully, he was childish, it was unpresidential, it was all the different adjectives that you can think about. Yeah. But the fact is, the person that started the name calling and the person that started the digression last night was actually Biden. Now, if you don't believe me, go back and look at the tape and see where it started. Trump, as you mentioned earlier, Clint, and it's true, Trump was responding, and the way that Trump responds is, you punch me, I punch you back harder. And that's what happened. But the person that took the first punch last night was actually Biden. And then it just digressed from there. But I think there's a lot more of us out there than people think. And I, like you, Clint, I'm not buying these polls. I'm not. There is no way, and obviously I'm a Republican, obviously I'm a Trump supporter, but I looked at Biden last night and I did not see a man that looked to me like he had the energy and the wherewithal and would be able to take the punishment of being president of the United States. I just didn't see it last night in him.
Not only that, I don't see a man who is going to be able to stand up to the far left wing of the party, and pushing their agenda on him, because he'll get into office and he's just going to check out. He is not going to have the stamina to do that. And if he can't stand up to what's in his own party, just how's he going to stand up to Russia or China or North Korea or Iran? It doesn't.
No.
He's flawed in so many ways that it makes Trump's flaws look minuscule.
Well, actually, what was Trump's flaw last night could actually be interpreted as being a strength, and that is a man that does not back down and does not take a lot of crap. And it may be a flaw on the debate stage, but on the world stage, I actually think with some of our enemies, that's a plus. He's not going to take it from you.
No, because our enemies are totalitarian states ruled by, their version of tyrants. So
and they respect strength. I know you and I have spent a lot of time overseas in some of these countries, and strength is actually what's admired over there. Strength is. And that was, he was definitely the alpha male on the stage last night, no question about it. And by the way, speaking of the left, the base, so something interesting came out, Clint, and I'm sure you picked up on that. And I noticed the press is not talking about this, but Biden was asked if he was going to publicly support last night the new Green Deal. And do you happen to know what his response was?
He said that's not his plan.
That is not his plan.
I believe.
Interesting. Yeah. That is interesting to see. Wait a minute. That's a big part of the Democrat Party right now, is that extreme left wing, and their baby is this Green New Deal. And folks, he said it last night. He's not supporting it. He is not supporting it.
That's what he said.
Yep.
And that's maybe him trying to reach out to that middle America Democrat, union laborer in a automotive plant, or those Rust Belt Democrats that were always in the hip pocket for every Democrat politician since Roosevelt, I guess. But that is not they're not going to vote for him. I don't think they are. He's not waving some magic wand that's going to make them feel better about how this party has turned their back on them, because Trump's economic plans have benefited them. They've benefited pretty much everyone. The only one they haven't benefited is probably like you and me, because we ended up paying more taxes, and that's fine. I mean, we were in that group, I think, where we fell where we ended up paying more. But hey, whatever, that's fine. But I for those blue collar workers, in the coal industry, the oil industry, all and automotive industry, the steel industry, all those industries that once were pure blue Democrats, I think is changing. And I wouldn't be surprised if all those votes go towards him again, because I don't see any reason why they would not. No matter what the press and what the Democrats have tried to do to Trump and what Joe Biden is going to say about him on any debate stage, I don't think those people believe anything they're going to hear at this point. It goes back to what you said. People's minds are already set. I don't think there's anything that's going to change it.
And so let's talk about some of the things that Trump said that were attacked, and they were attacked by the press. I noticed CNN last night, not 5 minutes after the debate was over with, said that basically everything that came out of his mouth was a lie. All right, so let's just talk about a few of those things. And before I forget about this one, because Clint and I are both veterans. We were both aviators in the Navy, and I'm going to address this one first. And the reason why I'm going to address it is because I think that most people in America don't. It's not possible for many people in America to understand the nuances of this particular subject that I'm going to bring up. And I hate to do it in a way, because I hate to talk about somebody who has passed away. I don't want to disparage their service. I don't want to disparage them as a person, but it was brought up. Okay, I'm not bringing it up. It was brought up last night. And after the debate, I got some questions on it. And it's because obviously people don't understand it. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because people don't understand it, and you have to put it in perspective. And people who are veterans of the United States military, I think, are uniquely qualified to discuss these particular matters. And Clint, it was this. Of course, we know about Hunter Biden. And Trump attacked Hunter Biden, and of course, Biden tried to make it sound like it was improper to bring up his son. Why are we bringing the family into it? That it was false. That the accusations against Hunter are spurious at best, flat out lies at the worst, and that there was it was not true at all and unfounded about this whole idea that he took money from Burisma, from China, and from Ukraine and other places. Folks, I'll quickly put that one aside. Those are under investigation. Lots of evidence, and time is going to tell. Those are not over. Those are not spurious, made up claims by Trump. Those are real. Those are real things that are going on right now, and you'll see down the road when that happens. But the second thing, and this is where I wanted to focus on, is Beau Biden. Beau was brought up again. Now, if you don't know, those in the audience, if you don't know who Beau Biden is, Beau Biden was Biden's other son, who was in the Army. He was in the National Guard. He's an attorney, or was an attorney. He passed away from brain cancer in 2015, I believe that was. So he passed away from brain cancer, and he did serve in the Army as an attorney. He did go to Iraq for a year. Okay, and then came back and continued to serve in the National Guard, and then went on to run for and became the Attorney General of Delaware. Okay, so great stuff. Not disparaging that at all, but I'm going to throw out some facts here because Biden really tried to make money off of his son, and what I mean by that is he tried to put Trump down as being heartless, and threw out some information that tried to guilt Trump. And I want to analyze some of that. Now, he has in the past, when I say he, Biden has tried to say that Beau's death, his passing away, was related to his service in Iraq. It was not related to Iraq. Okay, I'm not disparaging his service in Iraq. It just had nothing to do with his death. He died 5 years later from brain cancer. And the other thing that he threw up last night, and this was, I was asked about this after the debate, was that Beau had received the Bronze Star and for his service in Iraq. Now that's kind of curious because I did mention that Beau was an attorney. He was what's known as a JAG. He was a JAG officer in the Army in Iraq. Now, Clint, do you happen to know why, if somebody was going to give me the Bronze Star, what would qualify me to get the Bronze Star? Clint, do you know?
Well, so the Bronze Star could be given for two reasons. So my father, a Korean War veteran, won the Bronze Star in Korea because he crawled up to the side of a North Korean T-34 tank with a bazooka and got close enough to it so that he could shoot it through the between the road wheels and the bogey wheels and into the tank and destroyed it. That it was pinned down a bunch of his comrades. So they gave him a Bronze Star for that.
Yeah, and that sounds like a legitimate reason. Yeah,
you got a Bronze Star with a V for valor. Yep. Yeah, I was surprised to find out that I was seeing guys come back. I was in the reserves till 2011. I got recalled active duty, but I got sent to the Pentagon to work on counterterrorism stuff, and I didn't go into Iraq or Afghanistan. But I saw a lot of guys coming back from there with Bronze Stars without Vs, and I was like, how did you get that? Well, it appears that if you were in a war zone, right, and you're like the commanding officer. Say you were the commanding officer of a destroyer or a frigate in the Persian Gulf, and you were in the war zone, your normal end of tour award would be a meritorious service medal.
Yeah, I saw that quite a bit in the Navy myself.
But since they were in a war zone, they were giving them Bronze Stars without a V in lieu of a meritorious service medal. But this was usually for people who had held command of a squadron, of a ship, of a battalion, something like that, an 05 level command. Now, is it crazy if he was getting a meritorious service medal for his time in Iraq? it could have possibly been, upgraded, or in lieu of got a Bronze Star instead. I don't know. I never read his citation. I find it a little crazy that a major is going to get a meritorious service medal. As a lawyer, I don't know exactly what he could have done to get a meritorious service medal. Like I said, that's usually given to more senior individuals. So
the excerpts that I wrote of and again, for the listeners that don't know this, if you haven't been in the military, when you receive a citation for any of them, meritorious unit award, any of them, Purple Heart, anything, there's always a write-up. Somebody has to submit that you for the award, and there's a write-up that accompanies it. And the excerpts I read from it was basically just, he did an outstanding job. He was an outstanding lawyer, and that's great. And just so you guys know, there are awards in the military for doing that. If you do an exemplary job, if you just do your job fantastically, there's awards. And how do I know that? Because Clint and I both, as naval officers, wrote awards. We had awards written for us, and I wrote awards for my sailors, and I know you did as well, Clint. There's appropriate awards for you doing an outstanding job. It just isn't the Bronze Star. Okay, the Bronze Star is the intent of that award is meritorious conduct in combat. And I just can't imagine any scenario, unless his post was overrun by the enemy, and there's no record of that happening, why an attorney assigned to a unit would receive the Bronze Star. I just maybe because your dad was the vice president of the United States, maybe that had something to do with it. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay. Well, like I said, as a military veteran, I scratch my head at that.
I think that they probably push it through under the auspices of meritorious achievement.
Of which there is a medal called the meritorious.
While in a combat zone. Yeah. So that's probably why he was able to get it. Mm-hmm. Is it medal inflation?
Absolutely.
My personal opinion, 100% yes. Yep. If you're not in a combat related MOS or I just don't see. I personally don't think Bronze Star should be given to people who are not directly in support of combat troops or in command of combat troops, whether they actually shooting at somebody or not. If you're in a war zone and you're in command, say, for example, a squadron, and you are flying over the beach, on combat missions, and you're going to get a meritorious service medal at the end of that tour for leading men and women in combat, even though they didn't get shot at, because there's other things for getting shot at, there's other awards, there's a Silver Star, there's, the Army gives their combat infantry badges and all those things, right? I don't think you should get a Bronze Star for just pushing, paper across the desk inside the green zone.
No.
That's just me.
Not at all. So I just wanted to throw that out because I even though in the big scheme of the debate that really wasn't relevant, I guess, but it seemed to spur a lot of questions. And so anyway, I just want to give a little background on that. The next thing is I had, again, my daughter sent me some information on somebody that she knows in school where this person that she knows sent out a message to all of her friends saying, if you are one of my friends and you plan on voting for Trump, go ahead and unfriend me now because I want to have nothing to do with you because you support this racist. And go ahead and unfriend me now. I won't ask questions, but I want nothing to do with you. So that raises the question of this recurring theme that Donald Trump is a racist. And of course, the media was spinning that last night because of a response that Trump gave. And again, if I was Trump's advisor, I would have had him answer the question a different way or would have encouraged him to do that. And the question centered around this. The question was, do you, Mr. President, do you condemn white supremacist groups out there? And if you go back and you look at the tape, what he says is, he goes, well, of course I do. That's how he starts off. And then he goes on into this explanation about Antifa and how Antifa is a terrorist organization. And then he tries to get Biden to condemn Antifa. And of course, now what's curious about that is Biden never did in that exchange right there. Now, Biden was not held accountable for that, but Trump was certainly being held accountable for the fact that he did not just flap his arms around it and say, of course, I don't support these groups. But he did say it. And what he did say was that he condemns all violence from all people. But somehow that's been twisted into him being a racist himself. So, Clint, thoughts on that?
Well, so, I mean, that's just the mantra from day one, that he's a racist. And the sad thing about this political era that we live in now is that word racist gets thrown around so much and so often that it is meaningless. And that's a shame, because there are probably some racists still out there, not as many as there were maybe 100 years ago. I would still say if you were going to do a percentage-wise, there's more bigots out there than there are racists, but that's not what we're talking about here. So, yeah, I call Trump a racist. You know what? If I bet you right now, if someone was listening to you and I talk, they'd call us racist too, because we don't agree. And that's really the bottom line, right? They don't agree with you. They don't agree with your politics. They don't agree with your freedom of speech and what you have to say. So therefore, the first thing they're going to call out is that you are a racist, right? It's like when, you and I were both in service when Obama was president. So we never really publicly said anything negative about him. But if you had,
we couldn't. We were forbidden.
Yeah. But if we had, guess what we would have been called? We'd have been called racist. Not because he was incompetent or his administration was horrible. No, that the facts have nothing to do with it. Facts only get in the way of this derogatory mantra from the left of destroying people through character assassination. And so we're going to call you everything possible to make that happen. And in this case, it always falls back on Trump was a racist. And some people throw out, well, he had these agreements about rentals, or his father did, or, there's certain union regulations in New York City and all this stuff. The man, up until he ran for president, was never, ever called a racist. Right? He never. I lived in New York for 16 years in New York City. I never once heard those words come out about Donald Trump. I heard other things come out about him, but him being a racist was never said. Then all of a sudden he becomes president, and guess what? Now he's a racist.
And that's because he's a Republican, and that's how all Republicans are characterized.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then you're exactly right. And like that goes back to what I say. People right now listening to this are going to come back and say you and I are racist because of what we've just said. Well, we both know that is the farthest thing from the truth.
Oh, absolutely not.
I've known you for 20 plus years, and we both know that we have a very open mind, and more than that, we have very open hearts to everybody. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't matter what your religion, what your creed or color is. You and I both have
orientation,
friends.
Anything.
Yeah, all that. Yeah. We have friends that fit all those categories, and legitimate friends. So it's not, you can come out and say whatever you want about me, but that doesn't make it a fact, right? The facts are what I've done over my lifetime. And the same thing is Trump. Trump's lifetime, he has said some crazy stuff. He but he's a P.T. Barnum. He's a showman. He makes money off his name. His buildings make money by putting Trump on them. His casinos make money by putting Trump on them. That is how he makes it. So to keep
and by
his
the way,
name relevant, he does things like that. And there's his history, right?
Right, and follow on with that history, with owning the properties and the hotels and the casinos and the television shows and all the stuff that he's done. The fact is, he actually has employed all of the people that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
They're everybody from every race, creed, sexual orientation, and religion.
Yeah.
He has provided jobs. And so for you Democrats out there, here's my question. How many jobs, how many people that fit those categories has Biden ever employed? Can you name any? No, I'm being serious when I say that.
Well, it's how many, he's been in politics for 47 years. I mean, how many people has he employed, period?
Right.
I mean, he's never created, other than legislatively funneling money to Amtrak or some other pet project of his. I mean, he personally isn't writing checks for anybody. Nothing's coming out of his pocket.
Now, so we just established a fact there. And if you don't agree with me, then come on the show and debate me about it, because I'd love to. That Donald Trump, this is a fact, has provided jobs to all of the people that we're talking about. White people, black people, Asian people, Muslim people, Jewish people, gay people, straight people, you name it. And Biden has not. Now, Biden was pretty quick to get his son a job that he was wholly unqualified for. Oh, and by the way, before I forget about this, Clint, that was something else that was brought up. It was actually mentioned in the it was mentioned in the debate. Biden talked about both of his sons, and he said both of his sons served honorably. Okay, Bo, I'll give you that. Hunter Biden, on the other hand, for the listeners that don't know this, Hunter Biden, it's a fact. He was a naval officer, but a lot of you don't know this. He was dishonorably discharged for cocaine use. And Trump mentioned that last night. And I know it got lost in the heat because they were arguing. And then Chris Wallace was talking over them. And Chris Wallace is a whole nother issue there, but he was talking over them. And Trump said when Biden said that his son, Bo, had served honorably, or Hunter served honorably. Trump came back and said that was a lie, that he was discharged dishonorably. Folks, that's true. That is a fact. That now it's being portrayed that Trump lied about that. He did not lie about that. Go and look it up. Hunter Biden was dishonorably discharged from the U.S. Navy as an officer, by the way, for cocaine use. Yeah. Right. And so I don't want that. So all these little things that you're hearing in the media about how Trump lied about that. No, he's not lying about that. He is not lying about that. But it got lost in sort of the shuffle last night. But the economy has been doing well. Now, Biden, speaking of the economy, Biden tried to say that he handed Trump a great economy. And so Trump, and what he was trying to allege was Trump was riding high on an economy that Biden and Obama created. Any thoughts on that, Clint?
Yeah, that's
not true.
Well, once again, that's in Joe's weak mind. Maybe that's what he thinks, but we know that's not the case. As soon as Trump came into office and he started lifting those burdens that had been put on companies to do business, the economy started to basically explode. And that's the fact of the matter. I mean, it's not, but that is what everyone's going to say. Listen, when Bill Clinton took office, a lot of Republicans said that's his economy was so good because of it was because of what Reagan had done in Reaganomics. So I mean that it's just like it's both sides will say the same thing depending on who's in power and who's not. I don't put a lot into that. I mean, I just look at what's going on at the time. Bill Clinton did so well is because he had a Republican Congress that was going to make it work for him, right? And they worked together to make a very strong economy, even though, you had the Newt Gingrich, Bill Clinton kind of tit for tat thing going on. But what ultimately, the Congress passed a lot of very good things for the economy under Bill Clinton. So that's how that worked. And in this case, Trump, like I said, he got rid of a lot of regulations and he opened up things, and the tariff seems to have, been a boost instead of a bust, like most people would say. I think Joe's off base, and I think you're going to continue to see him be off base on a lot of things. But,
absolutely.
I would like to, a little bit off base. So if I could just say something, because this has been itching at me for a while. I keep seeing Jim Comey on TV, and it drives.
Oh, he was supposed to testify today, wasn't he?
Yeah, it drives me crazy that CNN continues to put this guy up as if his word is gospel. I mean, if anything has come out, especially in the last few weeks, that his leadership at the FBI was flawed and corrupt. I mean, I don't. And I know I got this from a good source. I know this may be hearsay in some parlances, but we're not in court. Everyone tried to figure out what Comey was trying to do when seemed like he was playing both sides there with the Hillary Clinton and the investigation, everything that was going on, right? But from a lawyer, and you know this person, a lawyer who worked within the FBI, who was familiar with what was going on with the Hillary Clinton investigation and everything else, and actually told me one day when I was up there in his office, oh yeah, Hillary Clinton's server is just sitting there in a room up here on the I forget what floor the OGC was on in Hoover Building, but it was just sitting. I go, wait, Hillary Clinton's server is just sitting in a room in the hallway down there? I mean, what kind of evidence control is that? But that goes to show what's going on. But he said the whole thing, and it was kind of known amongst the lawyers there at Hoover, is that Comey wanted to position himself to run for senator for the state of Virginia. And he was going to run as a Republican who could get along with both sides. And that would then, in turn, his ultimate goal, I think, was the White House. But the stepping stone to that would have been senator from Virginia, a blue-red state where he was going to walk that fine blue-red line, right, and get his way into the Senate. And he was lining people up in his staff up there at the higher level to work in his campaign. And I think that's where you see McCabe and these other people kind of getting pulled up into that political agenda of Comey's. Of course, I don't think they'll ever come to admit to it, but that's what was said to me, and it came from a reliable source. I don't have any reason to disagree with it, and it makes more sense than his erratic behavior when he got up in front of people and laid out the perfect case to indict Hillary Clinton and said that no reasonable prosecutor would ever do so.
And to follow along with that, Clint, I actually heard the same thing. And what people have to understand is this is not some conspiracy theory that Clint and I are coming up with. This was actually a discussion that we heard or was told to us, for that matter. And just to kind of clarify a little bit, so those of you that aren't in Virginia maybe don't understand Virginia politics, because you have to understand Comey, McCabe, are Virginia residents. And so just to clarify this here, what you're looking at is, if you remember, Hillary Clinton's running mate was Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine is one of two senators here in Virginia. And so the allegation is that Tim Kaine would run for Hillary as vice president. Then he gets elected. He becomes vice president. That would open up a Senate spot here in Virginia. Then the idea was that Comey would then run for that Senate spot. Then McCabe would end up working for Comey. And then later, if Comey went into another part of the government or into a higher office, then, of course, McCabe then would take his position. Do I have that pretty much correct there,
I
Clint?
think so. Yeah.
That was the transition. Yep. And so those of you that didn't know Andy McCabe was more of a politician than he was an FBI agent. In fact, he was really never really an FBI agent. He was just somebody that was always trying to move up the chain and then go into politics. And he and his wife, because please don't forget that his wife actually ran for the state Senate here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She lost the seat, but she was supported by the Democrat Party, and they were holding fundraisers. In fact, I think at one point they raised almost $300,000 in their living room while Andy McCabe was deputy director, acting director, actually, or deputy director of the FBI, which was a complete ethics violation for him to do that. And that was going on while Hillary Clinton was under investigation by the FBI, of which Andy McCabe was deputy director of. Now, if you tell me that's not just a slime ball move on his part, completely unethical, but that if you think of that line of transition I just laid out to you, which is something that Clinton and I heard at the Hoover Building, it was not something we're making up. It makes complete sense. And if you know James Comey, if you know him the way that we know him, and I've probably heard him speak in public more than most people ever have, that was how he was. Okay, that's how he was. It makes complete sense. James Comey, if you don't agree with me, come on the show. We'll talk about it. But
I would love to
do we have that pretty much straight there, Clint? I would love to have that conversation.
I think you have it 100%. You know, I think James Comey betrayed all of us FBI agents that, you know, and all the good people that go out there and do, you know, the work, the analysts, the the surveillance specialists, the IT, all the support people and all the agents, for his own personal gain and his own ego. He betrayed them, and he continues to betray them every time he gets on and talks. It's a shame that some people believe it, but it's really just a travesty. The damage he did to an organization that has done so many outstanding things for this nation, and I don't know what it's going to take to repair that. Because it's going to last. That feeling is going to last with people for a long time. I mean, I know people who at one point thought about going into the FBI and now have changed their minds and said they don't want to do it. You know, and that's a shame because they're good people and that's what we need. You know, because it is. You've done the job, and you know the position of trust that you are placed in, you know,
it's immense.
It's immense. And that pressure, you know, you don't realize how much that pressure wears on you over time as you work cases, you know, and you work at headquarters and you are constantly striving to do the right thing, to be as administratively pure and right as possible so that you get the job done. And, you know, that, people don't think that may mean nothing, but I tell you, until you walk in those shoes and you live it, it's not until you step away from it like we have, and you realize, wow, I can't believe that I did that for 20 some years. You know, it's unbelievable because and stayed married to the same woman and raised
that's tough to do.
And raised two great kids. It's not everybody can do it. And you and I have seen the casualties along the way, whether it's, you know, federal law enforcement or state or local law enforcement. Divorce rate is incredibly high. And that's because it's a hard job to do mentally and physically, you know, and people that sit there, it's like the person that sits in his chair and watches the NFL quarterback and criticizes him, right? You know, let me see you get out there and try and do what he's doing, right? Until you've done it, you have no idea, right? And when I see people second guess law enforcement officers and, you know, say, well, he could have done this or he should have done that. No, you don't realize what it, in a split second, the type of decision you have to make to either save someone else's life or your life, right? What you have to do in that moment. And then then you have to live with the consequences of those actions, right? Which nobody ever talks about, right? You do, because you realize how the mental physical strain affects people, and you've helped individuals over the years dealing with that. But it's and it just riles me, and then you can tell it strikes me personally when I see Comey get on there and say what he does, because he never walked in those shoes. He might say he did because he was a prosecutor, but it's not the same thing. It's not.
You know what? And I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I'm gonna do two things right here. I'm gonna address our listeners, and I'm gonna address James Comey directly. Okay, because a lot of people, I find that when I talk to people, they don't understand this. The FBI director, James Comey, was not an FBI agent. James Comey was a political appointee. Chris Wray, the guy that's there, was a political appointee. All of the FBI directors, with the exception of Louis Freeh, who actually had been an agent for a few years, he was the only exception. The rest of them were political appointees. And what I absolutely resent, and I know you do as well, Clint, and the majority of FBI agents that are out there resent the fact that this guy comes in, James Comey comes in, he's a political appointee, and he does this damage that he did to the organization, and now he's gone. But who's left with the legacy? All the agents and the analysts and all the support employees that are in the FBI today have to live with this, with the legacy that he left. In our lifetime, you and I will probably go to the grave before the FBI ever gets its reputation back, and they may not ever get it back. Okay, and so that's people need to understand he is not an FBI agent. Never was an FBI agent, and he has no idea what a law enforcement job was. And I remember I actually heard him give a speech one time down at the FBI Academy where he was asked about that, because some of the police officers that were in the audience did not realize that he was not an FBI agent, and then one of the officers asked him, well, how could he possibly relate to the job? He'd never done it, and the closest thing he could do is say that his father had been a police officer in New York, like I think Long Island is where it was, but it was somewhere in New York. And I remember thinking to myself, well, that's kind of a cheesy analogy. I mean, so you understand law enforcement because your dad was a cop?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you, Clint, but my dad was a dentist. Yeah, but I don't think you want me drilling your teeth.
No.
Because my dad was a dentist. It doesn't make me a dentist. I don't think you want me doing anything inside your mouth when, just because my dad was a dentist. I mean, that was and it really hit me then, what a fraud this guy was. And so now I'm going to turn, and I'm saying this directly. James Comey, you're a disgrace. You have done more damage. You're an embarrassment. And I really wish you'd stop going on CNN, and I wish you'd stop writing books and going around and speaking today. You've done the damage, and the rest of the people out there are trying to pick up that, pick up the pieces. And Peter Strzok, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with you. You're an embarrassment he was an FBI agent, but you're an embarrassment to the organization, and you're an embarrassment to your family, and you need to stop it as well. And that's what I have to say to those guys, Clint. I don't know about you.
I concur 100% with that. So,
yeah. So that's where we are. It'll be interesting. James Comey, as we speak, he should be wrapping up, or did wrap up, some testimony. I haven't seen that today, but I'm sure we'll have some comments on that. But Clint, thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you again.
Always a pleasure, Mark. I would anytime you want to come on and chat, I'm here for you.
Absolutely. Well, hey, folks, once again, we're going to wrap it up here for today. Thank you for joining us on the Mark Vines Show. Check us out on our Facebook site, the Mark Vines Show Facebook site. Give us a follow, give us a like, give us comments. And as always, if you want to talk about, give some comments about anything that we've said today, particularly if you disagree. Love to hear from you. And we will see you guys soon.